Hello, my name is Maria Marcano and I am the Burnout Repair Coach. Welcome to this segment where we talk about the ways that you can reverse and prevent the physical, mental, and emotional damage that can come from career burnout. My hope is that you are able to regain your vitality, your joy, health, and mental focus, and learn that you can be successful without breaking your body or your relationships in the process. And today we're going to talk about a myth, something that we actually all believe to be true, but it's a big lie. You wonder what that is? It's multitasking. Yes, multitasking is a legend. It's not real. But many of us were told that it's possible, and we have been trying to achieve something that is not possible and is burning you out. What is multitasking? Well, like I said, it's a myth. I'm not quite sure when it started, but it was somewhere around the 80s, and then we all caught on to it. And I want you to understand the root of this. Why did we all buy into something that's not true? We did because most of us are dealing at a subconscious level with a limiting belief. And this limiting belief has to do with our value. So we begin at some point in our lives to believe that we're only as good as much as we do, that our value is tied to our activities and our accomplishments, meaning the more we do, the better person I am. The more I do, the more they'll value me. The more important I feel, or the more important they think I am. So all of a sudden, we caught on to this idea, oh yes, let me multitask, that will give me more value. And we start identifying our personal worth and attaching it to how much we do in any single day and sometimes in an hour. But in reality, your brain can only do one thing at a time. And multitasking is actually not an ability or a skill. Now that you know it, you wonder, well, what is it? Multitasking is a way of self-sabotage. Multitasking is a handicap that shows a poor ability to focus and tends to reinforce a tendency towards control, an over-controlling person. This doesn't make you bad, it's just you have not been aware of this. And I want to bring awareness to the real thing operating behind this idea in this word called multitasking that now you know is a fantasy. So the truth is that when you even try to multitask, and let's assume that you can, you are using your energy poorly. You're not efficiently using your energy because it takes more mental and physical energy to jump from one task to the other. It takes a lot more energy to shift gears, to stop something, and to train your body and your brain to start doing something completely different. So multitasking actually does not make you a good leader or a top performance. I want you to think about your cell phone or any of your devices. Has it ever happened that you have a lot of things running at the same time, a lot of apps or a lot of windows open on your computer, and then all of a sudden you want to run this particular program, software, or website, and your cell phone slows down or your computer is not as efficient as it normally is? Why is that? Too many windows open, too many things running at the same time. That's the exact way that your brain operates. If you are working in multiple things at the same time, you are not being efficient at any single one of them. You're diluting your mental energy throughout all of them, and you are not performing at your highest level in any of them. This is not a way a high achiever, top performer wants to live. So you're doing it. Notice it, just like when you run your computer and your cell phone and there's too many things open, you have too many boxes open, you are going to be always at subpar performance no matter what you do. What happens after a while? Well, you end up making more mistakes. It takes you a lot longer to do things, and you'll find yourself redoing things because the first time around wasn't optimal. Why? Now you know why. You were not at the highest possible performance level of your brain. The other thing that I want you to consider as a high performance and a successful individual is that one of the things that brings you to the top of your career performance is being able to think strategically. When you are multitasking, which now we know you're really not doing, you are not thinking strategically. You become very task-oriented, and being task-oriented is baseline performance. So if you try to do many things at once, you're just doing little tasks all around, but you're not able to tap into the deeper, higher levels of thinking that are required for you to be successful in your life, not only in your career, but in your personal life. Now, you might be thinking, well, but I multitask and I do it good and I think it's working out for me. So I always like to run some type of assessment because awareness is key. Becoming aware of how this is showing in your life is how you might be able to start shifting. So, like I said, multitasking is not a thing, but if it was a thing, it's something that I would call a symptom of toxic success. And toxic success for me is this type of overachieving that does not take into consideration the overall wellness of your system, meaning your relationships, your health, your mental health, your emotions. Toxic success is not sustainable. It means that sooner or later, it's going to end up in burning out. Sooner or later, it's going to affect you and you're not going to be able to sustain it for the long term. We're looking for sustainable success. So now you know that one of the things that multitasking or the idea and the myth of multitasking will do is it's going to erode your ability to focus. And as erosion happens in nature, it's low. But then after a while, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and starts to create damage in your ability to perform, specifically mentally. So how does this show? Well, you will see a drop in your performance. Whatever is the job you do, you might see a change on your goal achieving or your numbers or your results with your team or your relationships with your team. You're going to notice in one way or another a drop in your performance. This also can show within your relationships, your ability to connect with them, and also physically, your ability to perform physically. You're going to be more tired, which is another sign of this myth of multitasking showing up, because as I explained, you need more energy to shift gears from one thing to the other. You are going to feel tired faster, especially mentally tired. You're going to feel exhausted, and that it's another sign, which leads you to the third, which is poor memory and brain fog. So multitasking as a bad habit, or again, trying to achieve something that is unachievable because the brain is not designed that way, is going to put you in the space of brain fog and losing memory or not having such a sharp mind. And that is really dangerous. With it may come anxiety, because then you start worrying about making mistakes. Anxiety, in a way that I like to define it, is too much future in the mind. When you think you're multitasking, you're always thinking about the next thing, the other project that you're also working on, because you have your hands in so many things. So your mind is always jumping to the future. And that, by definition, is anxiety, too much future. And then all of a sudden you start feeling anxious all the time and worrisome. That could be caused, and it's a consequence of the idea of having to multitask. Poor sleep shows up too. And that is why some people, when they have this habit of trying to achieve these myths, they cannot sleep and their mind is just running a million miles per hour while they lay in their bed with their eyes open. Then the mind now developed this habit of jumping to the next thing. Even though you're not at work, you're thinking about the many open boxes, the many windows that are open while you're trying to rest. Your relationships are definitely going to suffer if you continue to insist in multitasking. And I'm talking about your professional and your personal relationships. Here is why. When you are trying to multitask and you have this habit of trying to achieve this unattainable thing, you are never present. You are always thinking about the next thing, or you're thinking about all the things you have to do. How does it feel if you are in front of someone and you're talking about something that's important to you and you know they're not paying attention because you know they're not looking at you, they're not listening? It really breaks that relationship. You lost the trust in that individual, you lost your respect for that individual, and that is what you become. You become that person that is never present, that does not listen for your staff and for your loved ones. And this is probably one of the most painful consequences of trying to multitask. And lastly, I feel that multitasking, since it comes from this idea that you're not good enough and that you always have to do more to prove yourself, it becomes compulsive. Because if you think you're not good enough, sadly, no matter what you do, you're going to end up in that same space. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But that creates a compulsive behavior. And compulsive behavior can start to kind of affect all of your lifestyle, not just your work. And they can show as compulsive checking of your emails, compulsive checking of your cell phone, your social media, compulsive eating, compulsive shopping. All of a sudden, this habit of being compulsive starts sort of plugging itself in different areas of your life. And this is a consequence of multitasking. And of course, with all of this comes the physical things, right? The headaches and the migraine, because your brain was not designed to do that. And of course, your body is going to start to stop you, try to stop you. How is it trying to stop you? By creating headaches and your blood pressure rising or any other issues with your heart health. You might give yourself an ulcer. Yes, it's the same, but it's a reality. Or digestive issues and other health issues start showing up. They're related to stress and burnout because of this insisting thing that now I want you to convince yourself that it's not possible, which is to multitask. So maybe now you are listening and you're like, well, I think there's something there. But what can I do? I never like to leave you with bad news and not give you a tool to improve. So here are some tips that you need to do, or you could do to improve your focus. I do want to address the fact that having being in that space for too long, it is helpful that you work through this limiting belief in this deep story that you tell yourself that you're not good enough and that you always have to do that, compulsiveness. And the best way to do that is to work with a coach. However, there's things that you can start doing on your own. And one of these is, and these are all to help you improve your focus. Right? Because everything that you do when you multitask dilutes and erodes your focus, as I said, erodes your focus. So one thing is to work in silence. I remember when I worked in the office spaces, I would always have music playing in the background, and I thought it was soothing. I'm going to encourage you not to do that. Work in silence. One thing only. You're building your ability to focus more and more, which is a superpower that high performance people that are in top positions in the world, they have an ability to have single pointed focus. Block all unnecessary notifications off. Turn them off from your cell phone and from your computer. Because this, again, it perpetuates that habit. Don't know if you remember, there's a cartoon that's called Up, where the dog will always go, squirrel, squirrel. Okay, this is who we become. Almost like an instinctive, like lower, we're humans, but all of a sudden we start behaving like a lower species. Not that I think that the animal kingdom is less than us, but as far as our brain, it is when we have all these notifications going on. So just cancel and mute all notifications that are not necessary. Even your email little bubble that shows up, it is completely human and okay for you to respond to an email within the hour. Give yourself a pause within every hour where you can look at these things, okay? The other one is time blocking for one thing and one thing only. Meaning from 1 to 3, I'm going to work in this specific project and this specific thing and this specific task. And honor it. No more jumping from one thing to the other. If it's possible, don't take calls or tell people that are working with you to not bother you if that's possible. And if it's not, it's okay. But that doesn't mean that you jump to another task, okay? So one task and one task only. Here's another thing that you can use when you block time like that and you create your schedule. See that you actually block the time where activities that are similar and next to each other. What does that look like? Let's say that I'm doing a numbers task. I'm working on a spreadsheet or some reports. It requires my right side brain to be very active. And then I'm done with that, 2 hours. That doesn't mean that I completed. It's like I'm shifting gears. Well, the next activity shouldn't be for me to create my new logo or work on my website or something along those lines, because that's a creative activity that calls for a whole other set of skills, and my brain is too sudden and too drastic of a shift. So maybe there's something else that's related to analytics or numbers or something similar, not the same, so I can continue to create the momentum that now I have within my brain and my mind and use that energy wisely. I hope this makes sense. It's like pulling the emergency brake and trying to turn the other way. It's not energy efficient, physically or mentally. So try to use your schedule if you have control over it and the best you can to block activities that are similar next to each other. The other one is to unplug regularly. By unplugging, I mean from your devices because of the whole squirrel syndrome. Because if you're always looking at a screen, your brain is not getting disciplined. You're not training. Think about your brain as a muscle that you are lifting weights mentally to become a sharp thinker, a focused individual. So what I suggest is that in the evening and in the morning, you disconnect from your screens and your media and give your brain an opportunity to be. To be. How about that? Be. Not do, but be. Very present with whatever's happening at that time. So media curfews are one of my favorite things to do. And the last one has to do with developing disciplines. Remember, we're working out, we're building this skill that we hadn't built before. And this is done by using activities that call for a lot of focus. Things like maybe playing chess, doing Sudokus, or a puzzle, or I think people can't even read these days because their focus has been eroded to the point that reading alone becomes hard. Maybe reading is hard enough for you. But then you can go deeper into the actual disciplines such as breath work, practicing yoga, preferably if there's in silence or without a lot of stimuli, martial arts, even the soft martial arts like Qigong and Tai Chi, and any other like art, like painting, drawing, things that will require focus. Do this, build that opportunity. And there's one exercise that doesn't require anything new in your life that I want to leave you with. And it's eating without distraction. This is your homework. I would like you to, from now on, eat without reading, without looking at your phone, without doing anything else. This is a task that back in the day was just normal, but these days people cannot seem to do. This is an exercise on present. Do what you're doing and do it fully, meaning eat, chew, look at your food, smell your food, taste your food, be present with it, and eliminate all other distractions. It seems silly, but if you try it, you'll realize how difficult it has become, and that is a sign of your lack of focus. But this can be a daily way where you assign 30 minutes or an hour, depending how long you take to eat. Make sure it's not in front of the computer, where you're actually cultivating your focus and stop multitasking. Please take this suggestion seriously. This is actually not just because of your health and your mental health and your physical health. It is actually what is going to help you be successful. Remember, the whole point is not to burn out. You can be successful without breaking your body or your relationships in the process. Thank you.